going on, everybody? Welcome to the stable and happy Halloween from me and my dead buddy here. In the previous video, me and dead guy managed to bolt on all of the suspension as well as finish the necessary welding for the Mustang to install. But it wouldn't be the stable if we didn't manage to break something first. Not to worry though, because we got it all sorted out, as I'll demonstrate now. Fellow viewer Nick Mitchell asked, what is next for this build? Well, aside from the dead guy in the car, let's get into what is next. Since this is not a Flintstone build, there is obviously a big piece of machinery missing here. This is a 5-liter 302 from a Mercury Mountaineer, basically an Explorer. According to the guy I bought it from, it has upgraded flat top pistons with a high volume Melling oil pump. It does have the better flowing GT40P heads, but as you can see, this car is obviously no longer stock, so we have to fabricate our own motor mounts in order to throw that 5.0 in here. Normally with the Mustang 2 setup, people usually run the motor mounts in line with this cross member, but I want the engine to sit as low and as far back as possible to improve the balance and center of gravity of this car, therefore also improving the handling. That is just one example of the many things we have to do to this rust box. But what we are starting today requires a lot of cutting, welding, grinding, just fabrication in general. This is a Ford 8.8 differential, and for those of you that are unfamiliar, this is a very popular unit in the modified automotive community for a couple reasons. One of the reasons it's so popular is its versatility. You can find these on cars at the track as well as the drag strip, even on off-road builds. Another reason why they're so popular is you get a lot of bang for your buck, starting off with the pumpkin. Depending on which one you choose, it will come with a limited slip differential, which ups the fun factor. And to confirm you do have a limited slip differential, the tag back here, mine for example, says 3L73. So that means along with the limited slip feature, I have a 3.73 gear ratio. And another big bang for your buck is you're already set up with some disc brakes. Another reason why these are a popular option is they can handle a decent amount of power with little to no modification. We aren't going to be breaking any speed records with that 302, so this is plenty for what we're doing. But just like everything we've done so far, this is not going to be a simple bolt-on installation. This will require some heavy modification in order for it to fit under that Mustang. One of those modifications being that we have to narrow this differential. So from the factory, the driver's side axle tube is slightly longer than the passenger side. So that means we have to cut out 2.875 inches from this side in order for it to be symmetrical with this side. Before we remove the axles, we're gonna go ahead and drain the fluid, which is something I don't want to do because I hate the smell of gear oil. It's doo-doo oil. The oil coming out is very clean. It must have recently had a flush before it was scrapped. I hate the smell of this doo-doo oil. The smell of this gear oil will be the death of me. While this thing is draining, I wanted to remind you guys we are going to SEMA for the first time this year, so make sure you have your notifications on so you don't miss that video. Alright, I think we've drained enough to do what we gotta do. Whoops, luckily this didn't go in. Oh look, it just barely misses the stinky doo-doo bath. Alrighty, so in order to take the axles out, we're gonna potato this thing until we find that little bolt. And I have my left hand in here to stop the pin from falling in once this bolt comes out. Oh, I almost dropped it anyway. Okay, so right here, you can see the ends of our axles. I'm going to push in on the axle and it should reveal, yep, the C-clip that's right there. C-clip is out. Now we pull the axle out. Oh yeah, oh no, more of the ooey gooey sauce. Now we gotta find the C-clips we dropped. Haha, got both of them in one go. Right here you can clearly see the size difference between the driver's side axle and the passenger side axle. I'm gonna slap the cover back on just so we don't drop anything in there. And we're gonna be grinding and cutting, so rather not have anything fall in here. I'm gonna be smelling that gear oil for the rest of the week. Before we can cut to start narrowing this differential, we need to remove all of these mounting tabs that are not going to work in our application. So, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, as one viewer described it, we now commence the metalwork violence. At this point, we have most of the brackets and accessories cut off, but there's still some of this thick weld left over. So we're gonna switch from the cutting disc to the grinding disc to get the majority, probably about 80% of this off, and then we're gonna go ahead and switch to a flapper disc. So it is now the next day. I had to stop grinding yesterday because my hands were absolutely killing me. The vibrations from the grinder were just making my hands ache. But we have most of these shaved down. We're just gonna go ahead and fine tune them with the flapper disc. But now that I'm realizing, I completely forgot to cut this one out entirely. But the thing that's bothering me the most is that the entire shop smells like gear oil. It stinks. On a less stinky note, if you guys would like to power the channel, the link right here allows you guys to buy me a coffee, which will help me get more videos out to you guys. Alrighty, we're finally done cutting off all the little tabs and mounting brackets. Now it's time for the scary part. So some quick math. The passenger side axle measures in at 17 inches and 3/8. So that is what we're trying to get this side to be. And this side measures in at 20 inches and 1/4. So in order to get this side to 17 and 3/8, we have to remove 2 inches and 7/8 worth of material from this side. And by no means am I an expert at doing this. This is actually my first time narrowing a diff. So we're gonna be making 2 cuts that add up to a total of 2 inches and 7/8. And depending on what application you're putting this in, it will vary where you make the cut. Since I don't know if we're going with a 4-link or just with the regular leaf springs, we're gonna make our cut at about 9 inches, which is just over this brake line tab. I'm going to mark a bunch of little lines so I can have a straight shot at this later. So now we have our line right here at 9 inches. And to have a good cutting guide, I am going to lay down a piece of tape. Okay, so that's gonna be our first cut. I'm going to double check that everywhere is 9 inches. The tape is not wavy. Okay, so now that we have our first line here, now we're gonna measure out from the edge of this line 2 inches and 7/8, and that will be what we're cutting out. Also, shout out to the fabrication series. I studied their video a ton before doing this. 2 7/8 is right here. I'm going to do the same thing and make a bunch of marks. This thing is still leaking gear oil. So same thing as we did before. Going to double check this to make sure we are 2 7/8 all the way through. Okay, so this one was a bit off, so I'm just going to redo the whole thing. So we now have our measurements done here. This is spanning a total of 2 7/8, if I haven't said that enough. We are now ready to cut this out. Let's do it. Wait, I had to cut this side first. Well, ladies and gents, now that I've cut it off, I've realized I might have made a big mistake. So I forgot to put a clocking reference so I know how to orientate this side. Yeah, see, what I should have done is, while all of this was still one piece, I should have made a line that held all the way across so I know how to clock this. But now all I have is 2 smiley faces that should be sad faces. Whoa, I really messed up this lens with the sparks. So potentially big mistake here, but I think I have a way of fixing it. So the other axle tube has a pretty flat surface down at the bottom, so it's pretty leveled. So I'm gonna use this and then just replicate it on the other side, and hopefully it turns out all right. We aren't going to worry about the clocking of the tube at this point. We're going to make sure our measurements are from 17 3/8 from the top, the bottom, the side, the corners, all around 17 3/8. And to do so, we're going to be using some large C-stock, 3-inch C-stock to be exact, and some big clamps. These clamps were sponsored by one of you guys, by the way, Mr. Catman. So if you guys see him in the comments, go give him a thumbs up. Oh yeah. Make sure we're all the way in. All right, so our cut is definitely not very pretty. So I figured this is a good time as any to actually clock it right. So the other side was nice and leveled, and we got this side nice and leveled as well. So let's go ahead and make our lines. I'm gonna make a couple lines just so we have backups. All right, now that we are clocked correctly, if we go ahead and measure this, we are standing right at 17 1/2. Check this side. 17 1/2, 17 1/2. So it looks like we're just a hair over 17 3/8. But we also have a big gap here, so the cuts weren't as pretty, so the tubes aren't aligning perfectly. So we're gonna go ahead and work that out. Ew. Now we can more accurately see the discrepancies within the tube. So if I line up our scribe right here, you can see there is a very big gap. And I can see that the bottom of this tube has way more material than it needs, as well as some of the top right here. You can see right here it's making contact, the bottom is making contact. So that's what we got to work with. So I'm only going to barely remove any material out of here, just so we don't take away too much. So we're once again gonna measure it with the C channels right here, just so we know if it's right or not. We still have a pretty good sized gap there. Let's go ahead and measure this. So it looks like we didn't take much off at all. We're still at 17 and a half. Yep, maybe I'm just being paranoid with it. All right, we're gonna hit it more aggressively. Yeah, our gap has closed significantly. Let's go ahead and give this a wackadoo. Wackadoo. All right, did we get any closer, any further? Okay, we are 1/16 off of where we need to be. Same thing on this side. Flip it 90 degrees. Same thing, shy 1/16. So our measurements all around are pretty even. Yeah, we just gotta take it down 1/16 slowly, and we'll be there. We are so close. I can taste it. Mostly I can taste all the metal shavings and the gear oil, but I can taste something. Hopefully we're not tasting failure. Give us something good. We're just shy. It's almost like we didn't cut anything off. Same thing over here. Back to cutting. This is the point where it gets pretty scary, because if I take too much away, then I'm gonna be in pretty big trouble. All right, this is now the 4th time popping it into the jig. Come on, give us some good news. Oh, we're like half of a 16th away. We are so close. This one has got to be it. I feel it, I can feel it. With all this grinding, we've managed to close down the gap. Come on. We're just like in between the lines where we need to be. That could also be the measuring tape discrepancy, because look how much movement I have on this thing. Probably need a better measuring tape to be doing something like this. One more. This one has got to be it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Have I told you guys that I hate the smell of gear oil? Give us the golden measurement, please. Right there. On this outer lip, we are just at 17 and 3/8. 17 3/8. Oh my God, I almost slipped. 17 3/8. Please, please, please. 17 3/8 on the spot, on the dot. 17 3/8. Ladies and gents, we got him. But the job isn't just quite done yet. We still have to weld this bad boy. But before we do that, we're going to bevel these edges just a tiny bit, because, well, my welder isn't that strong. So we want to get we want to get the best penetration we can get, and a little bevel will help us out. So here's a close-up of the beveled edge we made. This is just going to help us get a deeper and more solid weld. You can see the little valley we created right here. Okay, so we're almost ready to start welding this together. Hopefully that beveled edge did not alter our measurements. It shouldn't have, but it's always a possibility. 17 3/8, 17 3/8, 17 3/8, 17 3/8. Let's do it. We're going to lay down a small tack weld. Might as weld. Ba-dum-ts. Same thing on the other side. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Almost had a very bad day there. Going to remove these clamps and double check our measurements. Make sure the tack welds didn't warp anything, which I doubt, but just to be safe, 17 3/8, 17 3/8, and 17 3/8. We're good. All right, so we have a couple tack welds all around the axle tube, and we've rechecked the measurements after every tack weld just to make sure it's not pulling one way or another. So now what we're going to do is lay about a 2 to 3 inch strip of weld and then flip over to the other side, do the same thing while rechecking our measurements. Let's do it. All right, so we have a decent sized weld on here now, but we're gonna go over it with the flapper disc to make sure we don't have any pits or missing any areas. We should be pretty damn good. We just finished up with the flapper disc, and by no means am I the best welder out there. There is some spots we need to revisit, like these 2 pits right here, this one, these couple right here. But once we got those done, we should be good to go. So I've got all the little pits filled in, but I don't like using the angle grinder when I'm knocking down little welds like this, because I'll end up taking more out of the surrounding area rather than what I'm trying to do. So what I like to do in this case is to use a high-speed cutter and take them down about 10% of what they were, and then hit it with the angle grinder. Would you look at that? I'm not gonna lie, this was one of those things that I was a little intimidated to do because it is such a big job. If I were to do it again, I would probably clean the inside and the surrounding surfaces a little more, because we did have too much gear oil like spewing out while we were cutting, and it was basically bleeding out. And maybe I'd get a welder that's a little more powerful just to make sure we have some solid penetration and good melting. But the only question now is, will it hold up? I don't know. Stick around. Once we throw it on number 3, we will find out. So once again, I'm heading out to SEMA in 3 days, and I'm bringing you guys along with me. But while we're there, we're gonna go ahead and try to find some sponsors. And one of those sponsors that I'm looking for is, I don't know, we're shooting for the stars with this one, but I'm looking for a 4-link to throw onto this diff as well as number 3. But other than that, ladies and gents, I'm going to call it a wrap. I am starving. I have not eaten all day. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys at SEMA.